Coming up, Tzu Chi volunteers in the United Kingdom help feed the homeless in London. And do adding more stops to Taiwan's high-speed rail help solve the company's financial crisis? Welcome to DaAi Headlines. I'm Mary Lee. Thank you for joining us. In the United Kingdom, Tzu Chi volunteers make the best use of their time off by providing love and care for the homeless. Recently, they planned a day of giving, where in the morning, volunteers prepared for a hot lunch distribution at the Islington Chinese Association Center. Then in the evening, a hot meal distribution took place on the streets of London to make sure more homeless friends were taken care of. On this night in London, Tzu Chi volunteers mobilized to care for the homeless.
Thank you for this.
Volunteers distribute a cup of hot tea and a serving of warm spaghetti to each friend. The spaghetti is made from a recipe that an Italian volunteer asked his mother to teach him, especially for this occasion.
I'm Mandarin. Mandarin.
The volunteers sometimes forget their smiles, as this is only the third time the London volunteers have visited this area and are still unsure of the needs of their friends. After the distribution ends, volunteers then continue to send their loving care to others in need. Meanwhile, earlier in the day, the volunteers were up at the crack of dawn, readying vegetarian lunches for the twice-a-month hot meal distribution for the homeless at the Islington Chinese Association Center. After the lunch concluded, volunteers then held a study session in English to recharge and return to the source. In our next report, we go to Tainan, Taiwan to meet Ms. Lee. Years ago, Lee's husband was admitted to the Dalian Tzu Chi Hospital due to cellulitis caused by an infection. However, after a thorough examination, medical personnel discovered that Lee's husband was actually suffering from final stages of liver cancer. Upon learning of this family's situation, Tzu Chi volunteers reached out a helping hand by offering the wife a shoulder to lean on. Although Ms. Lee's husband has since passed on, the affinity between the volunteers and the family continues till this day.
Upon seeing Tzu Chi volunteers' arrival, Ms. Lee's son breaks into a smile because he knows that the volunteers are here to bring joy to his mother.
After my husband passed away, I thought the volunteers would stop visiting us.
Lee's husband was admitted to the Tzu Chi hospital with last-stage liver cancer. At the time, her son was only a second grader. Extending their love beyond the hospital, Tzu Chi volunteers encouraged the widow and her son to join Tzu Chi's activities to cope with their loss, including practicing recycling.
When she first visited the recycling station, our volunteers passed on some environmental concepts to her. Since then, she has been volunteering happily at the station.
I really want to thank the volunteers, so I hope to join their ranks in the future. Although I have received the volunteers' help in the past, it doesn't mean that I will need their assistance forever.
Also partaking in Tzu Chi study sessions, Ms. Lee searches for strength and inspiration in the Dharma and volunteer sharing so that she may be on the giving end one day.
Tzu Chi volunteers in Malaysia are currently holding a concert tour to raise funds for people affected by last year's floods. At their second stop in Penang, the concert featured performers Yang Wei-han and Fang Zhongbing. Both of them helped build prefab homes for flood survivors in Kelantan, and their universal love could be heard loud and clear in their singing.
I will help others first, since my house is not ready. Others can move in first. They've had a hard time. I don't mind working hard.
Such acts of kindness can be seen all over Kelantan. Singer Fang Zhongbing has witnessed it all firsthand.
He thinks his neighbors also need homes. so he helped build prefab houses for others instead of himself. I saw that as you help the flood survivors, they also gain a desire to help others. Love spreads.
Malaysian performers have seen firsthand what the flood victims need to rebuild their lives.
This house is not built with tiles or bricks. It is built with love. We want to construct these homes for people and rebuild their confidence so they have the hope to carry on.
The tour's second stop was at the University of Science Penang campus. Among the concert stops, this was the performance with the largest number of singers.
在苦难中张扬慈悲，在变数中考验智慧。
As the stars perform on stage, they not only entertain but also express their love and support for those affected by the country's natural disasters.
In the Philippines, Ormoc City was hit hard by Typhoon Haiyan in 2013, and Tzu Chi volunteers have helped the survivors every step of the way as they rebuilt their lives. Originally, a blessing ceremony was to be held in February to celebrate the city's recovery. However, the venue to hold the event was under repairs. Now that the gymnasium's repairs has been completed, Tacloban residents, who are also Haiyan survivors, came to help local volunteers to decorate and set up the event.
A day before the blessing ceremony, volunteers from Tacloban traveled to Ormoc to help set up the venue. These volunteers were also victims of Typhoon Haiyan and previously received help from Tzu Chi. During the preparation, the mayor came to check on progress, and on the date of the event, several government officials also made it to the event.
We're happy also that you're sharing your blessings with us. That's one of the highlights. We're very happy about that.
Among the nearly 100 volunteers from Ormoc who came to help set up the venue was Raf, who was at his mother's side to help out.
If I help my mom carry these boxes, she will not have to carry them or get injured from lifting them.
Another local volunteer got on stage to share his story. Although he had been smoking since the age of 10, he quit after participating in Tzu Chi's Cash for Work program.
I hope more people can quit smoking just like me.
Apart from helping the residents get back on their feet, volunteers will continue to offer their earnest support in other areas here in Tacloban in the years to come.
Next, we bring you the story of 28-year-old Lori Chen, a passionate volunteer who spent her savings traveling to poor countries to help orphans. Having witnessed such suffering firsthand, Chen has vowed to become a beacon of hope for the children in need.
In Taipei, Taiwan, 28-year-old Lori Chen, who received an education in the United States, travels not only to Taiwan to volunteer in Tzu Chi hospitals, but also to the poorest countries in the world.
When I went to Ethiopia, I saw that life was imperfect, but I told myself to do the best I can. After seeing these children, I've learned to live every moment of my life.
13楼 B 你可以直边直走，然后呢左转就有电梯可以上去。
Wearing her volunteer vest, Lori guides visitors to their destinations. Volunteering in service of others has become an integral part of her life.
因为大家都会说牺牲嘛，我从来
People said that I am sacrificing my life, but I have never thought of it in this way. I study hard during the summer because I want to get my degree in 3 years instead of 4. By graduating 1 year earlier, I can spend more time doing something meaningful.
这样可以早一年毕业，可以再去做更多的事情。
Participating in Tzu Chi's international relief in Haiti, Lori cared for many orphans, and when she encountered difficulties, Master Jian's words of wisdom serve as a source of encouragement.
看过了这么多近似语啊，每天
Studying Jing's aphorisms is my daily routine. One of the most inspiring aphorisms I've come across helps me to continue even when it's hard to go on. As the master said, if you think better of it, things will change for the better.
心你一转的时候，其实那个苦或者那个困难就过了。
Taking care of orphans around the world won Lori recognitions at the 2015 10th Outstanding Young Person Award in Taiwan.
One of the most important things we do is to bring every toddler outdoors, ensuring they obtain the needed vitamin D.
Now and in the future, Lori will be making the best use of this life to bring more goodness into the world.
We continue to learn about the problems faced by Taiwan high-speed rail today. The frequent malfunctions which have led to the service interruptions that affected millions were due to the frequency of service and short distances between stations. However, with a total of 4 or more stations being added, not only will such problems be exacerbated, the travel time between northern and southern Taiwan will increase significantly as well.
非常抱歉，由于台中车站号志讯号异常影响，目前全线停止运行。
Between 2007 and 2014, the Taiwan High-Speed Rail experienced 74 technical malfunctions. For 2014, on average, at least an incident occurred every month. The 4 major malfunctions of the year were abnormal reverse track switch signal, switch machine malfunction, and electrical equipment malfunction.
The train has to accelerate and decelerate whenever it enters and leaves a station, and follows a strict protocol, while the load the train carries can vary. I think the THSR must adhere to a high standard of safety management to reduce risks.
According to the Ministry of Transportation and Communications, due to the frequency of train services, the short distances between stations, the load placed on the switch machines is heavy, which leads to frequent malfunctions. Regarding the train's low ridership, Zhang Shenxiong, who participated in the initial planning, said, originally, the stations were supposed to be closer to densely populated areas. He has no idea why all the stations ended up being so remotely located.
As we drafted the plan for the THSR, we expected monthly ridership to reach 180,000 passengers. But the condition was that the stations would be closer to cities, and thus the need for connection services would be minimal. So it is no surprise that the THSR is losing money.
With 3 new stations coming up online by the end of 2015, the time of travel from north to south will be increased by 18 minutes.
They're trying to expand the service areas to increase passenger volume. But with 3 additional stations, this means longer time of travel due to more stops. So traveling from Taipei to Kaohsiung will take 18 minutes longer. This might turn away some passengers.
In the future, 1 more station, Nangang, will be added, which means traveling from Taipei to Kaohsiung will take an extra 30 minutes, for a total of 150 if the trip originated from Nangang.
As the stations are all quite remote, it takes time to get to my clients. I usually have to take a taxi or other types of transportation, which costs me time. The stations are just way too remote, so even after we arrive at a station, the additional cost in transportation can be a lot. Not to mention the train ticket is pricey too.
Though the THSR is trying to increase its revenue by adding stations and adjusting ticket prices, it is not enough to make a dent in its huge debt. Scholars suggest that the government may purchase the right to operate buses to the stations, and then let such services be operated privately to resolve the problem of the limited connection services. Also, the practice of floating charges may be introduced, where the revenue of the THSR could be used as collateral to help resolve the company's financial problems. Though Hsinchu County of Taiwan is home to the renowned Hsinchu Science Park, there are actually many in need of assistance in the area. However, to make a home visitation in the more rural parts of the county typically means at least a 4-hour trip. We now join Tzu Chi volunteers as they make that trip to check on those in need in the county.
哇，大爱人间来不及，你们真的是大补贴。
In Beipu, Hsinchu, this cheerful young man enthusiastically welcomes the visiting Tzu Chi volunteers. It is hard to imagine he was nearly killed in an auto accident 6 years ago.
When he was in critical condition, he couldn't recognize me at the hospital. It was up to faith as to whether or not he would recover. After his surgery, he went to a nursing home to recover. When he came back, we began to visit him.
Miraculously, I began to recover slowly. Now I can even help support my family. I'm truly touched. It's just amazing.
你看啊，我进行一个动作，就是这样子。不好意思，鞋子脏脏的。
After crushing a can with his foot, Xiao Zhi then completely flattens it with a hammer. For years, Tzu Chi volunteers have used certain recyclables as a form of physical therapy to help Xiao Zhi recover. And not only has he gained his speech and memory, the salvaged goods are also sold to support his family.
I can help share my mom's burden and improve our livelihood. I'm so happy I can make a contribution.
因为他跟我小孩子一样大。He is the same age as my child, and my child is now happily attending college, so I feel sorry for him. Since not many people live around here, I was worried about his people skills, so I thought of our recycling station.
Tzu Chi volunteers have become Xiao Zhi's strongest support since his adopted mother injured both her legs in a recent auto accident, while his adoptive father passed away in February due to illness.
When the people from the funeral home came to take away his father's body, he just wouldn't let them. He said we must wait for Tzu Chi volunteers.
洪志才时常跟我讲说，
Xiao Zhi told me that since his home had a leaky roof, Tzu Chi volunteers came and helped make repairs.
就是你
If you cut the top of a pineapple off and plant it back into the ground, it would start growing.
Xiao Zhi is even learning to farm to help support his family and looks forward to sharing the fruits of his labor with everyone. To make home visitations in this part of Hsinchu is not easy due to the hilly terrain and remote location. Nearly noon, 73-year-old Grandpa Zhu comes home from working in the fields. Soon after, Tzu Chi volunteers arrive. For the past 3 years, the volunteers have visited at least once a month, a day that the senior looks forward to every time.
Most of the residents are elderly. The young have all left for the city. I don't want our visit to interrupt his work schedule, so I will always call ahead to find out what he has planned on the day of our visit. If he says he will be in his field, I will visit him in the field. If he says he has nothing planned and will be at home, I will come to his home.
Both Beipu and Ormoc Township of Hsinchu County are hidden in remote and hilly terrain. They are vast in area but low in population density.
Every time we visit, it takes at least 4 hours because Zudong and Ormoc are so big and far away. We have to time our visit just right too. Otherwise, we might catch them during their nap time.
When he first joined Tzu Chi 5 years ago, Yu Zhaoqing immediately took on home visitations. But at first, his family couldn't understand why he cared for others more than he did his own family.
I thought he ought to be spending the weekends with his own family. Instead, he was running around outside. At first, I was against this, but after hearing his stories, I decided to join him.
Guo Yarong completed her certification last year, and now their son also joins them as they go about sharing love with those in need. The Tzu Chi Great Love Elementary School in Los Angeles, California, recently celebrated Grandparents' Day by having students deliver speeches in Chinese to express their love for their grandparents. Their grandmas and grandpas were all delighted and touched by the activities the teachers had planned. My favorite grandparent is my grandmother.
Does it sound strange? Let's listen to the adults.
I'm very excited to be here. I love watching the kids grow and learn and speak Chinese, even though I have no idea what they're saying, but it's still fun to watch, and I like to see all the children interact with each other.
In the eyes of their grandparents, despite the accent, the students' performances are flawless. The Chinese speeches are just part of the activities held by the Tzu Chi Great Love Elementary School in Los Angeles to celebrate Grandparents' Day.
I like my grandpa and grandma. They like me too.
I like to be with her and catch tots in her backyard.
The students entertain their grandparents with speeches and sign language performances.
Wow, Mark, how very sweet.
They also serve tea. Next comes flower arrangements, a touching activity for all involved.
I think after my granddaughter started attending this school, she became more obedient and disciplined. She has also learned a lot and became very polite.
Their discipline and studies have been just wonderful. I'm just amazed.
Through the school's efforts, these children have become closer with their grandparents, as the generation gap seems to have disappeared in laughter.
Over the past few years, the Tzu Chi Foundation has been assisting needy families in Luodian County of Guizhou Province, which is among China's poorest counties. With the help of the Buddhist NGO, many residents have broken free from the cycle of poverty. To further their assistance, the volunteers recently returned to Luodian to meet up with local government officials to discuss a possible future collaboration.
In Luodian County, Guizhou Province, 36 Tzu Chi volunteers are here to exchange ideas with local government officials.
Residents here want to move to a location that has easier access to public transportation. It would be great if Tzu Chi volunteers can offer some assistance. We will definitely do what we can to assist the volunteers too.
Inspired by Tzu Chi's efforts, local teachers tried their best to instruct their students.
My grandfather told me that it is my responsibility to help these children leave poverty behind and embrace a brighter future. I told my students that they can hate me for being strict to them, but in the future, they will thank me.
Tzu Chi volunteers have served for 10 years to help needy residents here break free from poverty, and they continue to give even now.
It's nearing Tomb Sweeping Day in Taiwan, and ahead of the occasion, Tzu Chi preschool teachers in Kaohsiung taught their students that there are better, more environmental ways to honor their ancestors than burning joss paper. We will leave you with these images at the end of the show. Thank you for watching DaAi Headlines. Goodbye.